Friends, we're all back together for the next episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Welcome. This is Roxanne, who was originally on episode 790 called Roxanne. That title said Roxanne has type 1 diabetes, psoriatic arthritis, cholesterol, BP, heart issues, and more. Today's episode says this: Roxanne's had diabetes for 25 years. A returning guest from episode 790, she's here to talk about the RADIANT study and that she thinks she might not have type 1 diabetes but has type 2. That led her to using GLP medications. And this has done so much for her. Leveled out her iron levels, slightly decreased her arthritis. She's lost 100 pounds. There's a lot going on here. Lung collapse, GLP. Doesn't she have type 1 diabetes? So much happening in this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. If you or a loved one was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and you're looking for some fresh perspective, the Bold Beginnings series from the Juicebox Podcast is a terrific place to start. That series is with myself and Jenny Smith. Jenny is a CDCES, a registered dietitian, and a type 1 for over 35 years. And in the Bold Beginnings series, Jenny and I are going to answer the questions that most people have after a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. The series begins at episode 698 in your podcast player, or you can go to juiceboxpodcast.com and click on Bold Beginnings in the menu. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by US Med. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Get your supplies the same way we do from US Med. Today's podcast is sponsored by the insulin pump that my daughter has been wearing since she was 4 years old. Omnipod. Omnipod.com/juicebox. You too can have the same insulin pump that my daughter has been wearing every day for 16 years.
I'm Roxanne. I've actually been on the podcast before.
Yes, you have. Roxanne, your name is one that I actually recall. Like, it popped up in front of me and I thought, I know this person. I've recorded with this person before. I was so proud of myself when I knew. Tell people what episode you were on.
It was, I want to say it was 790.
Okay. What was it called? Do you remember?
I think it was just called Roxanne.
And you have type 1 diabetes?
I thought that's what I had, but apparently now they're thinking I have type 2 instead.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, hold on a second. Roxanne has type 1 diabetes, psoriatic arthritis, cholesterol, BP, heart issues, and more. That, boy, can't beat that as an opening. And that was episode 790, but you're saying now they don't think it's type 1?
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I did the RADIANT study, and I don't have any markers for type 1.
Okay. I mean, is that, I don't really know. Like, can you not have type 1 without any markers, or?
That's what I'm not sure. But talking to my endocrinologist, she says I'm probably more type 2. But because I was 18 when I was diagnosed, they just didn't look any farther.
I mean, that seems so backwards from what you normally hear, but
yeah,
fair enough. What do you think?
I figure it could be both. Both my parents had type 2, or my dad has it, and my mom had it. So it seems, I've always had insulin resistance issues with my PCOS and everything. So I'm like, I don't really care. It's treated the same way. So I was like, the label doesn't exactly matter to me.
Okay. You did this study. Do you remember what it's the rare and atypical diabetes study. Is that right? Or something like that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they did lots of blood work and had me come down and do a glucose tolerance test.
How old are you now?
I am 44.
So you've had diabetes 24, 25 years, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What made you go get the study done?
I heard about it on one of the podcast episodes, and I was just curious to see if I would qualify for something like that and just what it was about. So I looked into it.
Interesting.
And they had one here in town, so I didn't have to go too far.
Wow. How long ago did this happen for you?
That was, I think it was in
2023, about a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing changed about your management?
The only difference was I had started the Mounjaro by that point.
Oh, how did that impact? Is that why you're back on?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Geez, I didn't expect that. How did it make you feel when you got this news?
I was like, okay. I was like, because they've always gone back and forth and said it could be 1.5 because they were never sure what to call it. So I'm like, okay, I really don't care which one it is. It's like going, I'm still using the same things to treat it as I was before.
I mean, listen, obviously I'm not a doctor or anything, but I thought it was possible to have type 1 without the autoimmune markers.
I think so, but I don't know how they would know for sure one way or the other. That's what I was, because I looked up stuff after I saw that I had no antibodies. And I'm like, okay, well, is it possible? So I'm not really sure.
Is there no one to go back to, like, at the study and say, can I get more information about this? Or, like, because you're stuck then going to your endo who may or may not have experience, right?
Yeah. I was like, I may reach out to them again and see, because I know they wanted to talk to my immediate family members and do testing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
On them, but none of them have really been.
They were like,
I don't want to do that.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I got diabetes. I don't care which one it is, or I don't want to know I'm getting it or something. Is that basically the response you got back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, It's hard to not understand their perspective. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Listen, Roxanne, I just want to jump in here just so people know that, like, your microphone is going to sound a little different to them. Can I tell them how you're set up?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So you're wearing hearing aids that are directly connected to your phone, and that's how we've got this connection. So if we have like a little crackle or something at the end, like, that's what's going on. No big deal. I mean, let's give them an overview for a second, though. You lived a long time I'm assuming you've done shots. You probably worn a pump, all that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And your management in your mind is basal insulin coming from a pump. You're bolusing for all your meals. It's not like you're using what was your average total daily insulin before the Mounjaro?
I could use 200 units in like 2 days.
Okay. So you were using a fair amount of insulin. But you said also PCOS?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, probably since you were young, it's been on you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Insulin needs always on that side?
At one time, I was on U500 insulin.
Oh, okay. Jeez.
That was before the gastric sleeve.
Gotcha. And then there was weight loss that helped with that?
Yeah, I was 214 at surgery, got down to 170, and that's where it kind of got stuck at, was 170, which is why we looked into the Mounjaro.
Okay, so you lost 44 pounds after. When was the surgery?
It was 2016.
2016, you have the surgery. The 44 pounds comes off in about how long?
It was like, it may have gotten down a little bit lower than that, but eventually it creeped back up to 170. I think I got down to 150.
Oh.
Was my lowest weight.
Okay. So then you lived 2016, etc. When does someone come on and talk to you about a GLP? My daughter is 20 years old. I can't even believe it. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 2, and she put her first insulin pump on when she was 4. That insulin pump was an Omnipod, and it's been an Omnipod every day since then. That's 16 straight years of wearing Omnipod. It's been a friend to us, and I believe it could be a friend to you. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Whether you get the Omnipod DASH or the automation that's available with the Omnipod 5, you are going to enjoy tubeless insulin pumping. You're going to be able to jump into a shower or a pool or a bathtub without taking off your pump. That's right, you will not have to disconnect to bathe with an Omnipod. You also won't have to disconnect to play a sport or to do anything where a regular tube pump has to come off. Arden has been wearing an Omnipod for 16 years. She knows other people that wear different pumps, and she has never once asked the question, should I be trying a different pump? Never once. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Get a pump that you'll be happy with forever. I don't know how you guys order your diabetes supplies like CGMs, pumps, and testing equipment, but at our house, we use US Med. And I'm going to walk you through the entire process right now. I'm looking at the email from US Med. It says, it's time to refill your prescription. Dear Arden, please click the button below to place your next order. Then you click the button. That was it. 2 days later, I got this email. Thank you for your order from US Med. We wanted to let you know that your order, and it gives you an order number, was shipped via UPS ground. You can track your package at any time using the link below. And then there was a link, and then it showed up at our house. Now I'm going to walk you through the entire chain of events. On the 29th, which was a Saturday, I clicked on the email. On that Monday, the 1st, I got an email that said the order had been sent. 4 days later, on the 5th, the package arrived. If you can do it easier than that, you go get it. But if you can't, usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Get started today with US Med. Get your diabetes supplies the same way we do.
That was it was my surgeon from when I followed up with him 1 year. Because I was going back to see him to get blood work once a year. And he mentioned the Ozempic.
How long ago was this?
That was 2022.
All right. So a couple years ago, he says, hey, have you heard about this GLP medication?
Yeah.
And you said, what'd you tell him?
I said I hadn't, but he told me to ask my endocrinologist about it. So I did.
They gave it to you, no problem?
Yeah. She was like, okay, we can try that.
All right.
But she decided to do Mounjaro instead because she said it would have a better outcome.
You might lose more weight on it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what she said? Okay.
Yeah.
So you start shooting that in 2022. Where's your weight and what's your daily insulin like then right before you started, and what is it now?
Okay. It was February of 2023 is when I started it because it took me a little while to decide to ask her. Mm-hmm. Because I wasn't sure.
Okay.
I wanted to go that route. But in February...
Hold on, Roxanne, let's stop there. What slowed you down? Where were you unsure?
I just wasn't sure about it yet. I was like, so I did some research. And then I was like, okay. Because I think it was the end of 2022 when the surgeon suggested it. So it took me a couple of months to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with it.
Wanted to go slow and make sure you understood what you thought it was before you just jumped in. I see. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you go to the doctor. Doctor says, cool. That day before you start, total daily insulin and your weight.
I was 170. And then it was probably 60 to 70 units a day.
Okay. And you start with, what do they start you on? 0.25 of Mounjaro?
0.25.
Okay.
And then I moved up to the 5, and I haven't gone farther than the 5.
Oh, okay. So you started at 0.25. Did you do that for a month or longer?
It was a month.
All right. And did you have any impacts in the first 30 days?
There was a little bit of nausea, but not much. It actually wasn't that. I didn't have that bad of side effects. So,
What about on your blood sugar or your insulin needs?
Oh, there was a definite decrease right away.
Okay. Enough that you had to make adjustments to your settings?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Did you lose any weight the first month?
Mm-hmm.
How much?
I do not remember. It's been a while.
That's okay. And then you move up to the 0.5.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another decrease in your need for insulin?
Yep. It decreased again, and then it's just kind of been going, and then the weight was slowly going down by, I think it was October of 23. I was down to 120 pounds.
Holy Hannah. Wow, you lost 50 pounds?
Yeah.
Jeez, good for you. Congratulations.
And then I've been able to maintain that for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
This last year or so has been very crazy health-wise.
How so?
Summer of 23, my ferritin was 4.
Mm.
And so I ended up with an iron infusion, and that fixed that part. In March of 24, I got pneumonia, which then led to my lung collapsing.
Oh, my God.
And then 2 weeks later, it collapsed again.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Like a bounce house that won't stay up.
Yeah. So they ended up going in and doing surgery to adhere the left lung to the wall of rib cage.
Is that what they do to keep it from collapsing?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And the weird thing is my mom had her lung collapse at the same age.
Huh. Well, way to keep up trends. Good job.
Yeah. I'm like, we're like, wait, mom was about this age. I was like, and hers was kind of spontaneous. So the pulmonologist is doing a genetic test to see if it's a genetic a rare genetic disease. So I won't have results for that for a while.
Well, what kind of surgery is that? How invasive is it?
They put 2 holes in the side of my ribs and go in with cameras.
What was the recovery like?
It's like I would have gone back to work in less than a week, but they made me stay home.
Okay.
For at least a week. So I think it was a week and a half.
But you felt better in a week.
I felt better, yeah.
All right. Well, that's good news. Let's go back for a second to you
Okay.
losing, like, you're 120 pounds now?
I am actually at 115 because I was down to 105 when I left the hospital.
Roxanne, how tall are you?
5'2", 5'3".
Is this a good weight for you?
I'd like to be back up to 120. As of this morning, I was 115. So that's been good. So it's going back up.
Are you having trouble eating? No. So you're eating okay, but you lost weight. Why do you think you lost weight?
I think it was just the stress of all the medical issues at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Did your iron ever go back down?
No, it stayed back up. It stayed up pretty much. I follow up with a hematologist every 6 months.
Had your iron ever been low prior in your life?
Not that I know of.
Okay. I'm doing some comparison shopping here. And of course, if you listened, you know that my iron had been low for like ever. Mm-hmm. And then it stopped getting low when I started taking Zepbound now, which is Mounjaro. Mm-hmm. So it changes the absorption for me. I'm sure it doesn't do it for everybody, but I was clearly not absorbing something and now I am from my food. So
yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you feel like your health issues aside, the pneumonia and et cetera, do you feel different? Like, what's it like to have lost that weight?
It's interesting because I can't seem to see myself as being that small anymore. I still think of myself as being bigger.
Oh, do you want to talk about that, Roxanne? I have that
Sure.
Sometimes. Oh my God. So one time I came out to my wife and I said, I walked out in the room and I said, does this ever happen to you? Sometimes I turn the corner when I go into the powder room and I'm like, you're met with a mirror before you get into the room and it doesn't look like me.
Yeah.
That happens to you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All the time. Because there's all these things I can see that I've never been able to see before.
Like what?
All the different bones, like the bones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can see things and my veins are very, very noticeable now.
Yeah. I sleep on my side often and I'll if I sleep on my left side, I will sometimes with my right arm reach under and like kind of tuck my fingers under my chest, like on the right, on the left side. And every time I do it, I think, what is that? And I have the same thing in the shower when I wash my chest and I go down. There's this moment where you feel something and my brain's like, what is that? And it's my rib.
Yeah.
It throws me every time I touch it. Like it's happening. I don't want to make it seem like I can't learn. It's happening less and less, but just wash your chest, roll down. God, what's that? Oh, that's my rib. And then keep going. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah.
It's very weird too. I'm just like, oh, I was like, that's what that looks like. I've never been able to see collarbones before.
Yeah. Is that what this is? Gosh, at 5'2", you said?
Mm-hmm. It's like somewhere between 5'2" and 5'3".
You went from 220 to now 115.
Uh-huh.
My God. That feels like a miracle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you ever have that feeling of like, oh, I wish I would have done this before the bariatric surgery?
I don't know. I was like, because the bariatric surgery was so great to begin with. That helped kick things off, and at least. But yeah, I kind of wonder. I was like, what would have happened had we tried something like that first?
It's amazing. Has it had any impacts on other health issues?
I think so. My TSH has gone down. It's like 0.6.
Do you think that's the weight? And
yeah, I think that's just from the weight loss.
Okay.
Because they've had to adjust my synthroid levels a little bit.
Yeah. We've been watching that for Arden. Actually, she's going to get a blood test pretty soon for that because she lost weight with the GLP as well. She's almost in the same boat as you are. Like she got it back now, but there was a moment where we were like, it's a little too much loss. And she was able to, she put some back on, no problem. But what about the arthritis? I'm like so interested to know if it helped that.
A little bit. I still just have a low level of pain. I think also some of it's just been school started back up with work and everything. So I've been doing more movement than I had been this summer because they made me take the entire summer off. They wouldn't let me work this summer.
Because of the lung?
Yeah. Which was a good thing.
Yeah. Can you tell people what kind of work you do?
I am a teacher of the visually impaired.
Okay. Well, Roxanne, we are into a thing here. Okay, like I'm trying to decide which way to go. Do you have anything you want to talk about before I start picking through?
This summer, I actually went off of insulin completely. I had no injected insulin for just until last week. Last week, I put my pump back on because the stress of work was making my excursions after meals go up higher than I wanted to.
Wait. So you started taking Mounjaro, you lost a bunch of weight, and then you intersected a moment where you're like, I don't need insulin?
Yeah, my endo wanted to try, at my appointment in June, my endo wanted to try not doing any injected insulin because I was only using like 12 units of basal a day.
Mm-hmm. So just basal.
Or 12 units total a day.
Okay.
So I wasn't using much. Most of my basal was turned off. I switched from Omnipod 5 to the Mobi in March. And so it's like both algorithms worked about the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the Control IQ a little bit better.
Okay.
But it's most of the time, like at night, I don't get any basal with the pump program and my blood sugar stays about 86.
So you're wearing an algorithm, you're wearing the Mobi.
Mm-hmm.
This pump, it's deciding you don't need anything overnight, or you're telling it, I don't have a basal rate overnight?
Or it was deciding it, but then in June, my endo switched some settings around and made the basal at night 0.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it wasn't giving me anything, so she just went ahead and made it 0.
Okay. And that's working for you.
If it needs to do something, it will.
Yeah. But in the beginning, you were still bolusing at meals.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're not doing that until recently again.
Yeah, until last week.
How long was that gap where you weren't bolusing for the meals?
It was the 15th of June through last week.
To September. June, July, August, September. Like 4 months.
Yeah. About maybe 2.5.
About 2.5 months. Okay. What did your doctor have to say about that?
That's a good question because I haven't talked to her since I did it.
Okay.
It's like, and she gets the reports and everything. I go see her in November.
And that's on a 0.5 Mounjaro once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah.
You might disappear if you used any more of it.
Yeah.
Do you ever have the feeling like 0.5 is too much, or you think it's pretty good?
I think it's good, but that was one thing we were going to talk about, was looking at maybe adjusting how often I take it, like to like lengthen the time between things, or move the dose. One or the two is what some of the things she was going to look at when I come back.
Yeah. So you think you might elongate it, not take it every 7 days?
Yeah, that's what she was saying, to maybe take it every 10 or every other week.
Here's the way because that's the thing that gets brought up. I mean, everyone's limited by the pen, the dose, basically.
Right.
So when doctors get to the point where they're like, it's probably too much for you, then they'll talk about like, maybe we could stretch it out 10 days, something like that. But I've taken the medication and it wanes at the end, right? So It's not full power 7 days.
No.
Today's my 6th day. And I got up this morning and I thought, I'm hungry. But I wouldn't have thought that 3 days ago. Like 3 days ago, I would have woken up and not been hungry. I would have eaten, but I wouldn't have been hungry. And not that I'm saying it's bad to be hungry. I'm just saying that like you can tell it's not working as much. And if I got it in my head today to have like burger and fries or something, I could probably get it. I could eat it without a problem. But I couldn't do that on like the second day or the third day. And my point about that is that if the half-life of the drug, if it's not actually covering all 7 days like that, and you're having other implications from it, like meaning if you are being helped with your arthritis because of anti-inflammatory reasons, or if it's making an impact on something else, right? Like your PCOS, for example, are you seeing any benefit from that?
A little bit, yeah. I was like the decrease in the insulin resistance has been helpful.
Yeah. Then the question is do you really want there to be a gap? And do you
yeah.
Right? And do you start talking? Yeah, right. So you had that thought when she said maybe we can go longer. You were like, maybe we shouldn't.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I got the same thing, but it's like I usually take it on Wednesdays. So by Tuesday, I'm actually hungry on Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of the time, I'm not hungry.
Do you see your insulin needs rise at the end of the week?
Sometimes I've noticed that has been the days where it goes up a little bit, goes up and stays up a little longer than I would like it to.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever notice, has it ever fallen, but this is a lot of paying attention, but have you ever gotten your period? I'm so sorry to ask you about your period. Have you ever, the dumb job I have you ever gotten your period and been like at the back end and thought, oh, my cramps are worse or the bleeding's worse or anything like that?
Not usually.
Okay.
Because mine's gone back to being sporadic again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if it's perimenopause doing that piece again, because it was coming regularly for a while.
Okay.
Until the summer, and then it started every 2 months again.
How old are you?
44.
God, this perimenopause word won't leave me alone. My wife's 50. Jesus, I hear it everywhere. I'm so hot, perimenopause. I'm sweaty, perimenopause. I'm cold, perimenopause. I'm like, okay. I'm so sorry. Sounds horrible. Okay, so I haven't had anybody on yet to talk about this, and we're still just figuring it out for Arden. So I have I don't know that I have any valuable input on this, but I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but it's probably not out yet. So funny how the time shift works. I heard somebody say something today, like somebody online said, I know this is this, right? And I was like, oh God, I recorded that 6 months ago. That has nothing to do with that. But I see that you're drawing a connection to it because it's like, it feels like I probably just said that 3 days ago, but I said it like months before. It's interesting. Mounjaro for Arden, we're moving her up, like trying to get it to the right place. It's perfect on her blood sugar. Like if her blood sugar was the only consideration, she was using 5 milligrams of Mounjaro and it was beautiful. And I just mean blood sugar wise. Blood sugar's perfect. Like just you couldn't get an excursion. Like you almost didn't have to pre-bolus of, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no lows later because you're barely using any insulin.
Right.
Just super smooth. But she's like, I can't eat. We're like, wait. She's like, I am just never hungry. She's like, I'm eating, but like, I'm never hungry. So we're like, okay, well, we don't want that, obviously. She was away at school and she was losing weight. And, you kind of don't see her the same way. Like you're looking at her through FaceTime or whatever. But then she started being like, Dad, my pants don't fit. Like, like we're like, oh, okay, hold on a second. Like, she didn't have a scale with her, so we're like, all right. Mm-hmm. So like, let's get you home. Got her home, said this on the podcast already. She was about 6-7 pounds under where she should have been. And, we spent a little bit of the summer just saying like, all right, well, like, let's just, eat on purpose, like that stuff. Cause I've, used it for that. And it's what you have to do some days. You got to just tell yourself to eat, but it just wasn't working. So I'm like, all right, well, we want to get your weight back up. So just stop taking it this week. She stopped taking it. And she's like, my God, Roxanne, like on day 2, she's like, anybody want to go out to lunch? we were like, well, she was so hungry, and she had her appetite. So she's super excited and she's eating stuff and she gained weight. And we're like, all right, well, now we've got your weight back up, but your blood sugars, we've been managing it now with, again, a lot more insulin to make up for the fact that the GLP isn't there. And so let's get you back on this. But if we just hit her with the 5 again, like the 2.5 wasn't enough, right? And the 5 was too much. So I had a friend tell me, look, I'm microdosing my GLP. And I was like, oh, that's like, how did you work that out? And so it's pretty, there's a fair amount of like YouTube videos on all these different things that people are doing. But in the end, you can buy sterile vials and inject the pen into the vial and then use an insulin needle to take it out and then adjust your dose. Right. So we didn't know where to begin. So, we obviously talked to Arden's doctor and worked the whole thing out. And we just decided like, we're going to start with like a half of what's in the vial. So shot it in, drew out half, gave it to her. Truth be told, she didn't change her eating, which was great, but I didn't see any real impact on her blood sugar. So then you're like, okay, well, let's just move up. So the next week she did a little more. I think we're in like the 4th week of it now. And we're only going up by bits. So to give context to it, though, this is no dosing strategy for anybody. We just went to half. Like we basically injected it into the vial, figured out there was about 30 insulin units worth of the GLP in there, gave her 15 of them, didn't work. Next week, we were like, do 18? Like we didn't know, so 18 didn't really work. This week was 20. I'm seeing it impacting her blood sugars now.
Huh.
So next week we'll go to like 22 and it's a slow process, but we don't want to jump too far. You know what I mean? And so, we're adjusting as we go. We'll try 22. We'll keep going. And who knows what the answer is going to end up being. Like maybe, I don't know, but I know other people who are putting little bits in every day, like instead of giving themselves all of it in one shot. And then I've heard people say, oh, I tried that for a while and it didn't work. But my point is that everybody's out there trying to figure out how to dose this for themselves when they're in this other situation. They're not just trying to lose weight, or it's not type 2 diabetes, but it's type 1. And they're trying to find this balance between, is it help? Because it helps Arden with her PCOS and it helps her with other stuff. And I noticed her not rubbing her wrists as much and stuff like that. Like if you ask her about it, I don't know what she would say, but like, she's your kid. You've been looking at her for a long time. Like, Arden's got creaky wrists and she'll rub them. And sometimes, you don't see her do it as much. Or, her, is this, helping your periods? And she'll be like, I don't know, Dad. I'm like, okay. But then she came off it and she's like, oh, my cramps are terrible. I'm like, uh-huh. So like I think it's helping her with a number of different things.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. And it's all just, you're just trying to figure it out. And because the doctor's like, I don't know, try this, because I don't know. I'm hoping that one day they do studies on all of it so they can dose like that, directly from the doctor. I'm assuming one day they'll give you vials of it and you'll draw it up and use it that way. If you have type 1 or maybe type 2 or anybody, who knows? Like, I don't know. It's interesting and it's still in its infancy, really, even though it's been around for so long. Anyway.
My sister's been taking a natural GLP type supplement.
What?
And she's noticed some benefits from that.
What are we talking about? Do you know what it's called?
I'm trying to remember what it was. It was something one of my bariatric websites think they noticed would help. I can't remember what the name of it is.
Let me see if I can figure out what you might be talking about. So, could it be berberine? Could it be?
It could be
Bitter melon.
It's like some formula that has a bunch of that has a bunch of different things that help stimulate the GLP.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but she's been taking that one because she doesn't have any insurance and can't afford the.
So she's doing basically a supplement, over-the-counter supplement that people online were like, hey, this could help increase your GLP, whatever, production, use, etc. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I put a post up not too long ago, and I just said, any supplements you use, doesn't matter how crunchy or weird or common, like, could you list them here? Because I've been for years, I keep thinking, and people ask me all the time, like, could you have somebody on to talk about supplements? And I'm like, it's hard to know, like, who really knows what they're talking about, right? Like, so, like, you don't want to bring somebody on who's like, cinnamon, or, true enough, when I Googled what you asked me, berberine, bitter melon, fenugreek, cinnamon, probiotics, turmeric, like resveratrol, like these are things that popped up that are just like, look, these are things that might potentially increase GLP-1 secretion for people. Like, I don't know if it does or not, but what I finally kind of came to was, if I'm waiting for someone to come down from high and say, listen to me, if you take, I don't know, fenugreek, which I don't even know what that is. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is going to do that. I don't think that's ever going to happen. So why not let people just say their story? Like, I use this thing. I feel like it helps me. I'm not selling it. I'm not telling you to buy it, but it's, from my experience, it's worth a shot. Like I'm going to do like a short series of that for people. Like, look, I don't know if this is going to help. I don't know if it's a scam. I have no idea, but here's what this person said about it. You know, if your sister found something that she feels like is helping her, like, God bless, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to my nutritionist bariatric coach, and she was telling me about that one because she knows I've been doing the Mondaro, and she's like, this is one that I found that'll do it naturally for some people that can't afford it. So told my sister to try it.
Yeah, it's where, I mean, listen, has your sister lost 50 pounds?
It's like she hasn't lost much weight yet, but she says she's noticed differences with her cycle and everything.
Good for her. You see, that's awesome. Like it helped her with something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Who even cares if it didn't help her with the thing that, like, or if, by the way, if she took it for a month and she's like, you know, this doesn't do a damn thing for me, then she can stop taking it. People at least deserve to hear what other people are talking about. And I don't mean like in the like stupid, like, you know, cinnamon takes your diabetes away. Like not dumb like that, but over and over again, we did that myth series, right? Because that's a real common thing around diabetes, like the joke about cinnamon. But, you know, cinnamon has been shown to help lower blood sugar levels, but not in type 1s. Like it's not a replacement for insulin. Like, and those things get confused. So if somebody's taking a couple of cinnamon tablets and they've got, you know, and they see some benefit from it, like good for them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just, it feels like people want to argue all the time about everything. I mean, that just seems obvious, right? I would think that the first time somebody said, hey, you know, I took cinnamon and I noticed I think I have a little more insulin sensitivity. And then some other person comes running in and is like, don't say that. You're going to kill people. They'll stop taking their insulin. Like, and you're like, oh my God, well, that was an overreaction to what I just said. And then, you know, years later, there's this side of the argument and that side of the argument. People are online, you know, yelling and screaming about whatever. I would say, I don't know if any of these things do anything, but here's what people are saying about it. And here's a real person who listens to this podcast and was like, you know, I take berberine and I think it helps me. I think it's a net positive to share all that stuff and let people go find out what can or can't help them.
That makes sense to me because there's all kinds of things that I see all the time for PCOS and stuff, different combinations of supplements and things to try. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't do anything, it doesn't do anything, but it's natural stuff that's not going to hurt.
Worth a roll. Like, and yeah, I take your point. Like, you know, maybe someone's trying to make money off you. That would suck if that was happening. Right. But if you're in a bad enough spot, like you'd try something and see. You know, it's funny, like as an example, I hear from people, you know, I've Athletic Greens, or I guess they want to be called AG. AG1 sponsors the podcast. They buy a couple ads a month. Mm-hmm. I drink it, right? Like, so I wanted to try a green drink. And I tried a few of them. I couldn't stomach them. I got the AG1. I was like, oh, this tastes good. Like, and I took it and I thought, I think this is like beneficial for me. I noticed that it is, and I feel better. I'm going to keep drinking it. And I don't know how much longer after that, but then one day I get an email and AG1's like, you know, we'd like to buy ads. And I was like, oh, I actually drink AG1. I was like, awesome. And then you know, ads go up and you hear, it's snake oil. It's this. It's that. It's a ripoff. It's too expensive. It's not right for you. Like, and then somebody else will be like, I drink it and it really helps me. And like in the end, I'm like, listen, if it helps you, it's great. And if it doesn't do anything for you, then it's not for you. I can't spend my whole life arguing about whether or not a green drink is a great way to get your vitamins and minerals and whatever else. Like it's just, this person takes it and says, hey, it's valuable for me. This person doesn't think so. Like, okay, you don't use it and then you do it. Like, whatever. It's so weird how it falls apart.
Yeah. I've seen some of those. And that's the hard part about trying to post things that are helpful, is like, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to come against it the other way.
Yeah. Roxanne, I went to your Facebook page. You look like a different person. Isn't that something? Wow. Yeah. That's
and I've updated things a little bit. Yeah. That was the other thing my nutritionist told me. She goes, you need to update your photos. So I did some, and I think the one on the profile page is from right after I had surgery. So that like the end of May.
Yeah. Listen, I have the same experience. people are going to think that this story is like old, but it happened again. Like Arden sent me a photo of myself the other day and she goes, holy crap, like, look at this. And she's like, you like fundamentally don't appear to be the same person.
Yeah.
It really is. It's crazy. If you would have found me back then and said, how do you look? I would not have thought like, oh, I seem unhealthy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just never would have thought. I'm sure there are people who would hear that and go, you're an idiot. It was obvious or whatever. But like, I don't know. Like, I was used to seeing myself that way. The aches and pains and the other stuff. Like, I thought that was me getting older. You know, I mean, you look back now and you're like, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Like, you know, my knee hurt because I was heavy. You know what I mean? But it just, as you're living it, just kind of doesn't occur to you. I don't know another way to put that exactly. It's been awesome. Like, I just looked at your picture now and before, and I thought that's the same vibe from my picture, like now and before.
Yeah. I was like, I found one from like 2014 from before surgery. And I'm like, I don't even recognize myself in that picture.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, my face was fat.
When I get dressed in the morning, I'm still knocked over that I'm wearing a large t-shirt. Every day, like, you know, you find the tag and, you know, you turn your t-shirt the right way. And I look at it and I think that's crazy that this is a large t-shirt. And then I put it on and it doesn't grab me. Like, it makes no sense to me at all.
Oh, yeah.
My head got smaller. I wear a different size baseball hat now.
Yeah, I've got 3 sizes of pants right now just because I don't want to go buy too many more pants.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I can fit into a size 6. But then I have some 10s and 12s that still fit around the waist still. So I'll wear those ones sometimes, but it's like this. And then I have some 8s. So I'm like, oh, okay, what size is this one? Let me see how well they fit today. And I'm slowly getting rid of the ones that get too big when they fall off by themselves. I'm like, yep.
Good for you.
They're too big.
I give mine away to a charitable thing as I haven't lost much weight recently. Like, I've pretty stuck at this spot and it's my fault. I'm not exercising enough. I know that that's the next step to this and I'm just not getting it. Having said that, like, my wife, like, we'll look at her sometimes. She's walking through the house and I'm like, are you trying out to be a circus clown? Like, what is happening right now? And she's like, what? And I'm like, your pants. She goes, oh, I know. They're falling down. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, why don't you switch? And she's like, I will. She does it slower than I did. Like, I left the size and I was like, I took the clothes and I was like, I am never going to need you again. But she's a little more careful about getting rid of her clothes. But it's ridiculous. Like, I genuinely think I could put like a medium-sized child in her pants with her sometimes. I'm like, Kelly, get rid of those. It's so life-changing. Seems like just like just a stupid thing to say, but it really is.
Yeah. It's like I still go into the stores and have to remind myself I don't need to go towards the bigger size stuff anymore. That I can actually, we went on a cruise this summer and I actually bought dresses for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you have a good time?
Different ones, the sleeveless things. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I was always too big, but I didn't feel comfortable wearing a dress. So I've got all kinds of cool new dress clothes and.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of my great moments was like, I don't know, like 2 summers ago, and I was at my mother and father-in-law's house, and they have like a pool, and we were sitting around, and I don't get by a pool very often, and they have like, you know, these like kind of tall bar chairs, but they're kind of like, you know, springy, and they lay back a little bit. And I was like sitting in the chair, and I brought my feet up and put them like on the bottom of the seat, and I was kind of sitting there with my knees up. It hit me out of nowhere. I was like, I've never done this in my entire life. Like, my thighs would have been pushing my stomach. I wouldn't have been able to breathe if I sat like that, you know? And I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy. And it seems like probably the dumbest thing to people, but like riding in a car and you don't get sore, or, you know, on a long trip, or like this does the littlest things.
Oh yeah.
It's so much less about how you look and much more about how you're feeling and how you're interacting with the world around you. I think those are where I notice it more.
Yeah. And I'll run into people that I know. Like, I ran into somebody I hadn't seen in a while at work, and she's like, I almost didn't recognize you.
Has anybody asked you if you're sick because you've lost weight?
I have had that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that a couple of times. One of them was with a friend. And so after the awkwardness is over, he just looked at me and said, like, I thought you had cancer. He's like, I was so worried when I saw you. And I'm like, oh God, no. I'm like, thank you though. I appreciate you being concerned. But he's like, that's how different you look. Yeah.
My primary care says I should gain a little bit more weight. She goes, now you're at the bottom of the healthy range. I was like, okay, well, I was like, I'm working on that. I was like, the Monjaro keeps the blood sugar where it is. I've stopped losing, and now I'm able to gain back up, go back up, because I think 120 is where I want to be.
Yeah. There's probably some exercise, like some weight resistance exercise that would help you gain a little weight as well.
Oh, yeah, I have got to get into doing the strength training to get my muscle tone back, and maybe that'll help with some of the saggy skin.
Yeah. Oh, I think it definitely would. I have, like, my muscle tone is good. I'm not like pumped up or anything like that, but I'm not like jelly or anything either. Like, I know, because a lot of people will be like, oh, the GLP, you're going to lose muscle. And like, I think that's, people can look into it for themselves, but you're going to lose muscle when you lose weight, no matter what. Mm-hmm. So I do dumbbells and some things to like, just, I'm not trying to like grow or anything like that. I'm just to kind of stay in line with it. And I think I'm doing a good job. Like, I don't feel weak, and, my muscles are firm, like that kind of an idea. I'm obviously not a bodybuilding aficionado or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to lift weights, do like lift heavy things when you're losing weight, no matter how you're doing it. But probably specifically when you're using a GLP, it's probably even more important, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What do you experience with people around you? Have you gotten you've lost too much weight? Are you using that stuff? Like, do you have any of those conversations?
Most of the time, they just want to know. They just ask. A lot of times, they ask me if I'm sick, and I'm like, "No, I'm fine." Other than like healthy stuff, like it's not. It's like it was on purpose,
right?
Like I was purposely wanting to get down to where I felt better. Because even with the higher weight, I was still having insulin resistance.
Yeah,
that was the main reason for trying it. The weight loss was just a side effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was a nice side effect.
Exactly. It's like a gift inside of a gift.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that from a lot of people too. Like, my body being smaller is great, but I was trying to avoid, and they'll say, I mean, for me, I didn't want to have a heart attack. That's what I was most afraid of. I'm adopted. I don't know anybody I'm related to. So I have no idea if the people I'm related to drop dead all the time from one thing or the next. I have, this tiny bit of information about my birth mother, which, she died younger during bariatric surgery, like during the surgery. Mm-hmm. And the way it was told to me, I'm so sorry to like say, it seems like such a bummer, but I mean, I'm 53 now, I'm fairly past this, but apparently she was kind of forced by her parents to give me up for adoption. And that put her into a bit of a depression for a lot of her adult life. She became like morbidly obese, and then one day kind of tried to help herself, and then had the surgery. But during the surgery, she went to cardiac arrest during the surgery. She died during the surgery. It's terrible, but I don't know if that's a story specific to her experience, or if the people I'm related to have heart attacks in their 40s. You know what I mean? So yeah. So I'm like, it was Arden left for college, and I had this like moment where I was like, both the kids went to school. Like, I should try to help myself a little more. You know what I mean? And then that's how all this started now, like a year and a half ago. I'm actually going back to speak at something this weekend that I spoke at last year. I speak at it every year, but so I went last year in September. Mm-hmm. And by then I had probably lost April, May, June, July, August. It was like 6 months. I probably lost like 20, I don't know. I'd have to go listen to my diary to figure it out, but 20, 25 pounds, something like that. You know what I mean? A little more. But today I'm almost 50 pounds lighter.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering what people will think, like if there's going to be another reaction, or if the reaction's just over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's always an interesting thing, is like, is it more noticeable? But yeah, I wanted to go to that event, but it's a little far from me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't want you to travel. We are trying to, I'll be having some conversations this weekend about doing a traveling thing where maybe we put up a post a couple months ago now to try to see where are there concentrations of people listening.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Right. Who might want to come out. So the people who might be helping me with that I'm going to get to speak with this weekend. So we'll see what,
Cool.
see what happens.
Yeah,
Maybe we can do a
I
couple.
saw you when you came to Austin.
Oh, I enjoyed Austin.
That was really fun.
Yeah. The event was great. Like the seated, like what we ended up doing in the room, I thought was a lot of fun, and people seemed to really enjoy it. But the town was nice. The one thing I felt, I tried to get out and do something one night. I just couldn't get in. I was like, oh my God, the lines here are crazy. Got some food and I went back to my room.
Yeah.
But
it's like we try to stay out of downtown Austin when we go to Austin.
I don't know the area. They put me in a hotel and I was like, okay. And I'm like, where do I have to? Because the talk was
at the Capitol. Yeah.
It was in the Capitol building. Yeah. So like, I was just like, you get there and you're like, all right, I'll do this tomorrow. Like, you got to figure out where am I walking to? Like, where can I get something to eat? And then like that night I went out, I was like, God, there's so much going on here. And I just ended up walking around and just kind of experiencing the place, it was really cool. I didn't end up doing anything really, just kind of walking around and taking it in. Yeah, but I'd like to do more stuff like that. It's nice to meet people and say hi and, put faces to like names online and stuff like that. Where are you at? Like with I want to go back to this. So you stopped your basal only, you're shutting your basal off at night. And then for a couple of months, not even shooting for meals, but then now you're back to shooting for meals again. Like, what's your total daily insulin right now?
That is a good question. I am not sure.
Can you look?
And I'm not sure if I can get to it because it's on the app on my phone.
Oh, well, go ahead. If it cuts you off, we'll do it. It's fine. Try it.
All right, let me see if I can find it.
Because I'm dying to know. Because if I'm recalling right, you're like 60 or 70 units, and now. Then all of a sudden you weren't using as much, and
for at least 2 months, I had I didn't even have the pump on. I took the pump off.
Mm-hmm. You weren't even shooting a basal insulin.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
nope.
Okay.
Yeah, for 2 months, he wanted to just see what happens if we didn't give any injected insulin to see what my body would do.
Mm-hmm. Using a basal overnight now, or is it still 0 overnight?
Nope, it's still. Let's see. Let me look at what yesterday was.
Because we can kind of do the gazintas here and try to figure it out.
So the rest of the time it's 0.1 an hour.
0.1?
And when
Okay.
0.1.
So is it possible you're only getting like a unit or so of basal a day?
Possibly. Because a lot of these on the screen, like starting at like what I can see from yesterday, was like from 12 p.m. It was 0.1 for a little bit. Then it went down to 0. Then it went back up to 0.1. And then it auto gave me some stuff, and then I gave myself insulin when I ate. But
what are those rough numbers? Like rough numbers, like auto bolus and your bolus. About how much is that? Just count it out loud.
Okay, so it was 0.52 for the auto bolus.
Right.
2.65 was my bolus.
Mm-hmm.
Then it auto bolused again for 0.3.
Mm-hmm.
Then 0.45.
Yeah.
And then there was nothing else bolus-wise until I hit this morning and I put 2 in at 6 for my breakfast.
But yesterday was about 3.92, like 4 units of bolus.
Mm-hmm.
Plus what we think might be 1 or 1.5 units of basal.
Yeah.
So even if we give you credit for like 1.5 units of basal, you used about 5.5 units of insulin yesterday.
Yeah, from like 12 p.m. Yes.
Versus 60 or 70 before the Mounjaro?
Yeah.
Oh. So do you have type 1 or type 2 or LADA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
Like it's interesting.
Crazy
the
time.
C-peptide is like 60 or something like that, she said the last time.
Okay. And you're probably getting a little more, I mean, it sounds like you're getting a lot of bang for your buck out of those beta cells.
Yeah. Like whatever's in there, whichever ones are in there, they're working better now. Because at one point I was on the U500 and still using tons of insulin.
Yeah. Diagnosed at 19 years old. A lot of autoimmune stuff in your life, right? You have, right?
Oh, yeah.
Boy. Yours are the questions like that I really am super interested in the answers to. Like, are you type 2? Are you somehow in a 25-year LADA situation? Or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know. I was like, I'm curious about this stuff. I was like, but there's nobody wants to look. I was like, nobody knows. I'm like, okay. I was like, at that point,
there's
I'm
no
like,
money in figuring it out. They still sold you a pump and insulin, right? So yeah. Yeah, boy, that's interesting. Like you heard the episode with the guy, the 50-year-old guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I did.
50 years old, gets diagnosed. They tell him he has type 1, 6 years, he's using insulin. They put him on Mounjaro or Zepbound or whatever to lose weight. He loses a bunch of weight. They completely take him off of insulin for like 2 years. He has excursions at his meals, but they're not like, they go up and they come back down again. And I think he fully expects he'll need insulin at some point. But
yeah,
what a weird story, and not a story you would have heard without these injected GLP medications for the weight loss.
It's just fascinating listening, and just watching my blood sugar go up and come back down without any insulin was very other than what my body was making. It's finally able to use.
Roxanne, when that was happening for those 2 months, what did an excursion look like? Like, what did it go up to? How long did it stay up there?
And it'd go up to like 190, and it'd stay for like an hour or two, and it'd come back down depending on what I have.
Okay. So higher than you would expect if you didn't have diabetes, but not.
Yes.
Okay. But it comes back down.
I got to the point where I'm like, I don't like it going up to 200 and staying up there.
Sure.
So I decided to put it back on, and which is what she told me I could do if I decided I didn't like it or it started going up too high.
Yeah.
So you put your pump back on.
I love you just trying things,
Yeah.
And you haven't stopped taking Mounjaro since you started taking it. You've been taking it consistently.
I've been taking it consistently. I was taking Jardiance with it for a while. I'd been taking Jardiance for a while, but she decided in June to stop that one.
Just didn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said with what we were doing, so while I wasn't injecting, having insulin or anything, I was just doing the Mounjaro.
Jardiance is a pill, right?
Yeah, it's a pill. It was helping with like the insulin resistance and stuff too. But she thinks it was contributing a little bit to some of the blood pressure issues I was having.
Oh, okay.
So we decided just to stop it.
And your blood pressure got better?
No, it's still low. I don't know. It's like I went from having really high blood pressure and on blood pressure medication to them stopping the blood pressure medication and giving me something to make my blood pressure go up. And that didn't really work. So it's still low. Everybody's like, is your blood pressure always this low when they take it? I'm like, yeah, it's been that way for a while now.
Was it Jardiance a daily pill?
Yes.
It was. Okay. Did you notice it helped with your insulin resistance before the Mounjaro?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay. They're working on a lot of stuff now. Boy, wait do you see over the next couple of years these the pills they're trying to work out for the GLP and just all kinds of other stuff that's coming down the, they're going to send up to the FDA and see if they can get a yes for. So I'm interested to see where it all goes.
Yeah.
I don't mind giving myself the shot. Like, it's fine. But, I got to be honest, if there was like basically a pill to take that I knew would keep, my weight where it is and all the good stuff that comes along with it. I got to be honest with you, weight aside, just absorbing the iron is such a big change to my life. You have no idea. And just an increase in my happiness. Yeah. Just my iron not being low. I know people probably don't think of it that way, but it was a major impediment to like just living your life. So,
yeah. It's like, I'd rather take it. If I can take a shot that allows me to have better control of things and I'm not having to do shots all the time, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, right on, right? Okay, all right. Roxanne, is there anything we haven't talked about that we should have?
I don't think so.
I appreciate you coming back on. Did I ask for people to come back on, or did you reach out to me? How did this happen?
I heard on one of your weight loss journey that you were looking for people that were on GLPs to come on and talk. And so I reached out and said I'd like to come back on and talk about my journey with the weight loss stuff, because it's been a big difference.
Yeah, I'm happy for you. I'm glad you were willing to talk about it. I appreciate it. I get feedback from all the episodes basically, and overall, like, real positive from those. There's some people I think don't like the way I talk about my weight, and I don't know. I tried my hardest, but I think that format was interesting because what you don't like, I guess what you might not get from like listening is that like sometimes I sit down, it's like first thing in the morning, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take my shot now. And you turn the microphone on and you take the shot and you just, it's not like I'm thinking about it before I sit down. I'm not like, I'm basically in real time going like, well, what happened to me this week? Like not a lot really, or I couldn't eat here, or I ate here or whatever. or sometimes like you get emotional out of nowhere. Like you're like, oh, I can't, I can't believe this. How have you taken it? Like as a person who've gone through this, what's it been like to listen to it?
It's just nice to know that some of the stuff that I'm feeling are things I think or things I'm going through. It's not just me, that it does other people have those same experiences as they lose their weight.
Okay. That's good. Cause that's what I wanted from it. So, and you never hear the good stuff. You only hear like 3 people who are like, say something bad to you about everything you do. It's so strange, Roxanne, like, yesterday's a good example, right? Well over 10,000 people heard the podcast yesterday. If you get like one, like somebody's like, oh, I don't like this. You're like, oh, gee, that sucks. It's somehow you forget that the 9,999 other people are like, this really helped me. Thank you. You're like, oh, okay. Nice to hear back once in a while. Like, oh, this was good for me. So I appreciate that. Excellent. Really cool for you to come back on. I want to wish you continued luck. It sounds like you're doing as best you can and better, for all the different issues you have. And I'm glad that you're happier and healthier.
So exciting. It's nice to see. I was like, I still look at pictures and I'm going, how did I ever? I was like, that doesn't look like me.
Yeah. No, I know. I now think of myself as looking like this, but it still will startle you sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that story I told earlier, that was sort of in the beginning, like while the weight was coming off and you'd like see yourself and you'd be like, that's not me. And then you're like, oh, no, that is me. Okay, hold on a second. Again, that probably sounds silly to people who haven't gone through it because it felt silly when it was happening to me. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing that's ever happened. Like, what do you mean? Like, but there it is. Like you turn a corner and you're like, who is that? And it's you. I will tell you, I'm super excited to go back and speak at this thing. I have in the past. Like I was once at an event and they had a camera crew in and I just said to them, like, look, please, like, can you stand them on top of a 20-foot ladder if he wants to record me? Like, could he shoot down from the ceiling, do you think? As much as you go up there and let it go because you're there to do what you're there to do. And I'm not going to stand up there feeling awkward. In the lead up to it, there is that like, oh God, like, I wonder how I'm going to look. Like, I'm probably not going to look great, and this is the first time that I'm going to go to something like this. And that's not going to pop into my head. So it's just been really awesome, like you said. So, all right. Well, Roxanne, thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing this with us and for coming back on the show.
Welcome.
I don't know what we'll call this one, but we already used the best title for you, for anybody who's a fan of the Steve Martin movie. But we'll see what we can do. Hold on one second, okay?
Okay.
US Med sponsored this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Check them out at usmed.com/juicebox or by calling 888-721-1514. Get your free benefits check and get started today with US Med. If you'd like to wear the same insulin pump that Arden does, all you have to do is go to omnipod.com/juicebox. That's it. Head over now and get started today, and you'll be wearing the same tubeless insulin pump that Arden has been wearing since she was 4 years old. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group. Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes on Facebook. Are you starting to see patterns, but you can't quite make sense of them? You're like, oh, if I bolus here, this happens, but I don't know what to do. Should I put in a little less, a little more? If you're starting to have those thoughts, if you're starting to think, this isn't going the way the doctor said it would, I think I see something here, but I can't be sure. Once you're having those thoughts, you're ready for the Diabetes Pro Tip series from the Juicebox Podcast. It begins at episode 1000. You can also find it at juiceboxpodcast.com up in the menu. And you can find a list in the private Facebook group. Just check right under the featured tab at the top. It'll show you lists of a ton of stuff, including the Pro Tip series, which runs from episode 1000 to 1025. I can't thank you enough for listening. Please make sure you're subscribed or following in your audio app. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Hey, what's up, everybody? If you've noticed that the podcast sounds better, And you're thinking, like, how does that happen? What you're hearing is Rob at Wrong Way Recording doing his magic to these files. So if you want him to do his magic to you, wrongwayrecording.com. You got a podcast? You want somebody to edit it? You want Rob.